Hey guys, tonight we stroll softly through the vines and temple stones of an ancient world. Imagine the first breath of morning mist curling through the canopy of dense jungle. There's a sleepy silence here, not from absence, but reverence, because just past the mossy trees and chirping toucans lies the glimmering spires of Tikal, one of the great Mayan cities. No traffic noise, no glowing screens, just parrots arguing overhead and the faint sound of a conch horn echoing off stone pyramids. You're barefoot, don't worry. That's normal here. Your feet sink gently into warm, damp earth as you make your way along a narrow limestone path. Ahead, the horizon blushes with the first threads of sunlight. The jungle wakes gradually, as though it, too, knows this is no day to rush. But before we wander too deep into this steamy, sacred maze of plazas and palaces, a fair warning: you probably wouldn't survive a full day in the classic Maya world. Not unless you really like humidity, don't mind ceremonial bloodletting, and can read 3 separate calendars without blinking. Lucky for you, tonight you don't have to. You just get to follow the rhythm. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me where you're tuning in from. Drop your location and the local time in the comments. I love seeing how far this sleepy little community reaches. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You blink, and the light shifts. You're now standing at the edge of the Grand Plaza in Tikal. Towering pyramids rise in 4 directions, like stone giants in deep thought. The Eastern Temple catches the dawn light just right. It isn't showing off, exactly, but it knows it looks good. A young boy scurries by, carrying a woven basket filled with what looks like tamales. His bare feet slap softly against the limestone. His older sister walks behind him, balancing a clay jug on her head without touching it. You try the same trick mentally and immediately imagine spilling the entire thing. A breeze rustles through the ceiba trees, the sacred world trees of the Maya, and you feel the early warmth on your skin. You pass under an arch of carved stone depicting the hero twins, central figures in the Popol Vuh, a kind of Mayan creation myth that involves trickster gods, a deadly underworld, and a ball game that makes dodgeball look like a tea party. Historians still argue whether the hero twins were literal representations of star constellations, or just the Maya's version of bedtime fables with a cosmic twist. Either way, they're everywhere, painted on pottery, etched into walls, even woven into the embroidery of tunics worn by passing nobles. As you stroll, you spot the first signs of a city waking up. Smoke curls lazily from clay chimneys. The scent of toasting maize drifts through the air, mingling with crushed herbs and wet stone. Women sit cross-legged on woven mats, patting dough into tortillas with quiet expertise. Somewhere, a conch shell horn bellows again, long and low, and a few heads look up. Not in alarm, just acknowledgement. Time is moving. But time, here, isn't a simple straight line. The Maya track it in layers. There's the Tzolkin, a 260-day ritual calendar. The Harb, a 365-day solar calendar. And the Long Count, which was used to track historical events over thousands of years. Your modern smartphone calendar is officially blushing right now. A priest passes you in silence, his robe painted with red and black glyphs, carrying a bundle wrapped in bark cloth. Inside could be incense, could be obsidian blades, could be yesterday's dreams catalogued and arranged by significance. You nod politely. He nods back, but his eyes drift toward the Eastern Temple. He knows something. Not in a creepy way, just in a, I've memorized the stars and they said something weird's coming way. You pass a large stela, an upright stone slab carved with intricate images and glyphs. It tells a story, but unless you can read the syllabic writing system of the ancient Maya, you'll need a little help. Fortunately, your inner historian kicks in. and you recognize the name of a ruler, Jasao Chan Kawil I, who reigned in the 8th century and liked his pyramids tall, his wars victorious, and his calendar dates very, very specific. Mainstream archaeology confirms his existence thanks to dates etched onto temple stairs. But fringe theories, they claim the glyphs contain encoded star maps, or even instructions for cosmic travel. You squint. Could be a duck. Could be a spaceship. Who's to say you round the corner into a smaller courtyard shaded by banana trees? A group of children plays with a ball, bouncing it between hips and thighs, never letting it touch the ground. They're mimicking the sacred ball game played in the great courts, where the stakes were much higher. In some places, losing might have meant a ritual sacrifice, but historians still argue whether that was the players or just symbolic stand-ins. You decide to stick with dodgeball. Personally, nearby, a young scribe dips a reed pen into a pot of pigment made from crushed cochineal insects and begins drawing glyphs on a folded sheet of immortal paper. The codex he's copying looks like a comic strip designed by a mathematician, lines of divine figures, number glyphs, and scenes involving thrones, jaguars, and what looks suspiciously like a feathered snake offering someone a cup of chocolate. You glance up. The sun is now fully above the treetops, casting a warm, golden sheen over the limestone. The city glows not loudly, not boastfully, just present, alive with memory and rhythm. The hum of conversation rises. Drums begin a low beat in the distance. Someone begins to chant, their voice steady and circular, like time itself. You let the rhythm fold over you like a soft blanket. Here in Tikal, morning isn't just a time of day. It's a ceremony, and you've just been welcomed into it. You leave the Grand Plaza behind, wandering down a stone path worn smooth by generations of bare feet and royal sandals. The forest leans in around you, not menacing, just curious. Birds flit overhead in streaks of turquoise and gold, their calls blending with the distant thump of drums and the occasional chitter of monkeys arguing in the canopy. Your stomach growls, politely but persistently. Breakfast time. Luckily, a scent dances on the breeze, warm, toasty, earthy. It guides you around a low wall into a shaded courtyard where a family prepares the first meal of the day. A woman in a red huipil presses tortillas between her hands. A soft pat-pat rhythm that feels like the heartbeat of the village. Beside her, a man stirs a thick, bubbling pot of atol, a maize-based drink that's somewhere between a meal and a hug. Steam rises from the surface, carrying hints of vanilla and honey. You're offered a gourd cup, and you accept it with 2 hands, just as you've seen the others do. It's hot, a little gritty, and delicious. Your tongue finds the faintest tingle of chili at the end. Breakfast, Mayan style, doesn't play around. The man grins and gestures toward a flat stone nearby, where another woman is pounding cacao beans into a paste with a heavy roller. Her arms move rhythmically, almost trance-like. She glances up and winks. "Cacao," she says softly, tapping the paste. "Gift of the gods." And indeed, it is. This isn't sweet chocolate like you know it. The paste is mixed with water, maize, and spices like chili or black pepper, then frothed with a carved wooden whisk. The resulting drink is thick, bitter, slightly smoky, and almost ceremonial. The Maya didn't just drink cacao, they revered it. It was used in offerings, rituals, even as currency. That's right, your morning mocha would have been worth more than your shoes. Historians still argue whether cacao was truly the exclusive drink of the elite, or if the everyday folks snuck a cup now and then. Judging by the quiet joy in this family's faces, you're guessing it wasn't just royalty enjoying a warm sip now and then. You sit cross-legged beside the courtyard's central fire, watching embers dance up into the trees. A toddler toddles past, gripping a half-eaten tamwil and looking extremely pleased with life. His mother calls gently after him, then sighs and lets him be. Some mornings are just meant to be sticky and delicious. The tamales are steamed in banana leaves, filled with beans and squash, and seasoned with a pinch of ground pumpkin seed. You bite into one and close your eyes. It's simple, earthy, comforting, a food that feels like it's been feeding people since the world began. And in a way, it has. The Maya believed humans were created from maize. Not metaphorically, literally. The gods tried making people from mud, then wood. Neither worked. But maize, that held, that breathed, that became you. You think of this as you finish your tamal. You're eating your ancestors. Or maybe they're eating with you. Either way, the flavor deepens. A man joins you older, with a scarred cheek and a sun-worn tunic. He offers you a hand, then sets a small bundle on the ground dried peppers, a handful of amaranth seeds, and a single, perfect avocado. He speaks slowly, pointing to each item in turn, explaining how they balance the body's inner heat, how certain foods are meant for wet seasons, others for dry. His words aren't lecture, they're lullaby. You don't need to memorize them. They sink into you naturally, like steam into cloth. As he talks, a chicken darts through the courtyard, pursued by 2 children and a very determined dog. Laughter erupts. The chicken escapes. The dog skids into a basket and promptly falls asleep. The children return, empty-handed, but triumphant anyway. And suddenly, it strikes you this isn't just breakfast. It's a ritual, a rhythm, a microcosm of the Mayan worldview, where food is medicine, offering, memory. You finish your cacao and rinse the gourd in a clay basin. The family waves you off as you stand, bellies and hearts equally full. A small girl hands you a dried corn husk doll before you leave. Its eyes are painted with tiny dots of red. You tuck it into your pouch with a quiet smile. Back on the path, the forest seems even greener than before. Or maybe you're just seeing more clearly now how every leaf hums with life, how the sunlight slants like a benediction. A pair of traders pass you, laughing and juggling baskets filled with tomatoes, chili, cacao pods, and strange root vegetables you can't name. They nod in greeting and keep moving off to the market, no doubt. You follow the trail behind them, the beat of feet on stone, a soft percussion under birdsong. Your limbs feel loose, your mind warm, and somewhere, deep in your belly, the atoll sings its quiet song of maize and memory. You follow the traders down a winding footpath that narrows between 2 mossy stone walls. The jungle presses close again, ferns brushing your arms, vines dangling with lazy indifference. Somewhere in the canopy, howler monkeys give a throaty shout, more bark than melody. You smile. They sound like grumpy old men protesting the sunrise. The trail opens suddenly into a clearing lined with open-air stalls and bright woven awnings. Welcome to the market. No loud signage, no price tags, and definitely no carts with squeaky wheels. Just a riot of color, smell, and quiet chatter humming across stone and shade. Here, bartering isn't a hassle, it's an art form. One vendor shows off hand-carved bone needles. Another stacks baskets of copal resin like little pyramids, their sharp scent curling into the morning air. Clay flutes trill softly as someone tests a new tune. Children dart between stalls, clutching tamarind candies wrapped in palm leaves. You hear a woman laugh, low and rich, as she proudly announces she has the ripest tomatoes north of Calakmul. You stop to admire a shawl, deep indigo, patterned with jaguars and serpents. The weaver beams and explains how the threads were dyed with crushed indigo plants and snail shells. You feel the fabric. It's surprisingly soft, slightly rough, like moonlight woven with bark. She offers you a deal, one polished obsidian flake, a pinch of salt, and a story. You blink, then nod. So you reach into your pouch and offer the corn husk doll from breakfast. Her eyes sparkle with delight. She wraps the shawl around your shoulders like a blessing and leans close. "Don't wear it to visit the rain god," she whispers. He gets jealous of jaguars. You have no idea if she's joking. That's the charm of this place. Historians still argue whether Mayan markets were managed by appointed officials or governed by community consensus. But here, in the slow pulse of trade and laughter, it's clear no one needs a spreadsheet to understand fairness. The rhythm of barter is a language older than money. You follow a trail of scent-roasted squash with honey and crushed pumpkin seeds. A boy fans smoke away from a grill made of flat stones. He grins, gestures you closer, and hands you a folded leaf packet, still warm with steam. Inside, roasted squash, chili, and sweet pulpy fruit that oozes like jam. It's humble and glorious. You eat it slowly, watching the flow of people through the market. There's a healer near the edge of the plaza, her stall draped in dried herbs, tiny skull carvings, and pots of strange ointments. She holds your wrist with warm fingers, hums softly, and declares you a little too warm-footed. She hands you a drink made from bark, honey, and crushed ants. You sip. It's earthy, maybe minty, maybe not. Hard to tell with ants. Nearby, a potter shapes a bowl while humming a tune that has no beginning and no end. His hands move like he's molding the shape of a breeze. You watch the clay rise between his fingers like a slow breath, spiraling outward in a gentle arc. A traveler stops beside you. He smells like dust and cinnamon and speaks with a cadence that feels borrowed from another world. He points to a glyph scratched into the potter's bench, a spiral with dots inside. "It means arrival," he says, "but also return." You nod, as if you've always known. The sun shifts overhead, not hot, just glowing. The shadows of the market stretch a little longer. Someone offers you a drink made from fermented maize, not strong, just persuasive. You sip and feel your bones sigh. There's a stool nearby with bright red shells, cochineal insects dried and ground into dye. Next to them, polished jade earrings, carved wooden spoons, and a turtle shell drum. You touch each item lightly, not to buy, but to acknowledge. Each carries the hum of its maker, the memory of its use, the whisper of its origin. You walk toward the edge of the market and find a weaver finishing a tunic. The cloth is stretched on a backstrap loom, and the thread glides like water through her fingers. She doesn't speak, just nods. And you understand this isn't the time for words. It's the time for pattern. Each color she chooses is intentional: red for bloodline, black for night, yellow for the maize god, blue for rain. The tunic slowly takes shape like a dream being translated into cloth. You sit beside her for a while, not helping, just witnessing. Eventually, she cuts the final thread with a sharpened flake of obsidian and hands you a strip of cloth, no longer than your forearm. A bracelet, perhaps. Or a bookmark for a story you haven't finished yet. You tie it around your wrist. It fits like it was waiting for you. Historians still debate whether ancient Mayan trade extended across the sea, but in this marketplace, it's clear goods weren't the only things exchanged. Stories, dreams, knowledge. They flowed like water between hands, binding one village to the next like stitches in the hem of the world. The sun tilts. The market begins to hush. Stalls fold down. Children chase the last golden rays. A woman lights a clay lantern shaped like a toad. Its mouth glows softly. You realize it's time to move on. You leave the market with your shawl, your wrist thread, your belly full and your mind humming. Not with noise, with stillness. That kind of stillness that only comes when you've been seen, fed, and gently reminded that the world is much older and much more patient than you'll ever quite understand. The path away from the market curves gently uphill, its stone edges softened by moss and time. You walk slowly now, half full from roasted squash and market warmth, your breath syncing with the rhythm of the breeze. The jungle hushes around you, not in silence, but in that gentle pause before something important. A clearing opens ahead, centered around a low, round structure made of riverstone and smoke-darkened clay. The entrance is small, you have to stoop to enter, and inside, warm shadows flicker from a fire pit. You've arrived at the Temazcal, the Mayan sweat lodge. A woman with silver-threaded braids and ash-marked cheeks nods to you, gesturing toward the stones glowing in the pit's center. "The breath of the earth," she says softly, in a language you somehow understand anyway. She sprinkles water onto the stones, and the chamber fills with scented steam, sharp with herbs. Warm like a cradle, you sit beside others, quiet, shoulders nearly touching. No need for chatter. This is a place for remembering. The sweat begins slowly, as if your body is uncertain whether it's allowed to let go. Then, all at once, it releases like rain from a summer sky. Your muscles melt. Your thoughts stretch out like sleepy cats. The woman sings low and circular, a melody made for spirals. Each verse names a part of your body, from head to toe, calling it back to awareness, asking it to soften, to forgive. You close your eyes and feel yourself dissolve. Steam and heartbeat and breath. Historians still argue whether the Temazcal was strictly medicinal or deeply spiritual, or both. But in this heat, it doesn't matter. What matters is how the sweat feels like it's pulling stories from your bones, soaking them into the stones around you. A man beside you begins to cry, silently. No one turns, no one judges. This is a place where tears evaporate into healing. You think of the girl who gave you the corn husk doll. You think of the woman who whispered warnings about jealous rain gods. You think of your own name, and for a moment, it feels like someone else's. Not in a frightening way, just distant. Like something worn thin by time, ready to be rewritten. More herbs are tossed onto the stone's copal, cedar, and crushed leaves that smell like dusk. The woman pours water again. The hiss is immediate, the heat renewed, but it doesn't scorch. It invites. You lean in, letting the vapor stroke your skin, swirl in your hair, settle between your ribs. Outside, the jungle drums with frogs and cicadas. Inside, your heartbeat slows. A boy begins to hum beside you a different song now, brighter, rising like smoke. One by one, the others join in, voices weaving through the mist, untrained but unified. The woman claps twice. Silence returns. She opens a small clay jar and anoints your forehead with a cool paste that smells of crushed bark and honey. "You carry the echo now," she whispers. "Use it gently." You bow. The others bow too. And then you're crawling back into the daylight, blinking against the sudden brightness. Your skin glistens. Your heart beats slower. Not tired, just emptied, in the best way. A bowl of water waits for you. Cool, clear, a single flower petal floating on top. You sip, and it tastes like the inside of a memory. A robe of woven palm leaves is draped around your shoulders. You wear it not for modesty, but for marking. You've been inside the breath of the world, and now you carry some of it with you. You walk barefoot down the path again, each step lighter, like gravity forgot to hold you quite so tightly. The robe rustles against your legs like a secret being told in pieces. Soon you come upon a small altar tucked beneath a ceiba tree. Offerings sit quietly: cacao beans, feathers, broken pottery, a tiny flute. None are extravagant, but each radiates intention. Someone left half a mango, the flesh still golden, already humming with bees. You add your corn husk doll beside it, not because you're giving it away, because you're giving it back. Back to the rhythm, back to the cycle. You walk on. The day grows long and golden, shadows stretching like yawns. Birds wheel overhead. You hear laughter soft, tired, sincere. Someone plays a bone flute in the distance, the notes curling around the trees like a lullaby that forgot how to end. You come to a river, wide and slow, the color of polished stone. A woman in a reed boat offers you passage. She doesn't speak, just holds out a hand. You step in. She poles silently across, the boat gliding like a thought. Halfway across, she hums. A tune without words, older than the river. Maybe it is the river. Historians still argue whether river crossings in Mayan ritual signified rebirth, transition, or spiritual cleansing. But right now, none of that matters. The water laps gently against the boat. The trees wave lazily from the banks. And you exhale for what feels like the first time in years. The far shore greets you with orchids and soft earth. You step out barefoot again, of course, and bow to the woman. She nods and disappears back across the water, her boat dissolving into mist and memory. The path ahead is lined with stones carved in swirling glyphs. They whisper as you pass. Not words, exactly, just syllables, vowels made of wind. The robe shifts on your shoulders. The earth hums beneath your feet. You walk on, not toward a destination, but into the rhythm itself. And the jungle sighs around you, content. The soft earth yields gently underfoot as you continue through the whispering jungle, your robe still damp from the steam of the temazcal. The air is warm, yes, but now it feels gentler on your skin, as though the whole forest is exhaling with you. You hear the thud of a drum in the distance, slow, steady, patient. Not for war, not for warning. This rhythm is ritual. You follow it, winding between trees and stone terraces, half swallowed by moss. Ferns brush your calves. A hummingbird zips past your cheek, pausing mid-air like it's curious about your new glow. The path opens into a wide, open plaza at the edge of a ceremonial ball court. It's quiet now, but the markings on the stone ring set high in the wall tell stories. Not just of games, but of fate, glory, and sometimes endings. You walk the length of the court, footsteps echoing faintly. It's long and narrow, more like a corridor than a field. At each end, raised stone platforms overlook the playing surface, places where nobles and priests once sat to watch the outcome of the ball game with solemn attention, or maybe with snacks. Depends on who you ask. The game, called Pok to Pok, was played with a solid rubber ball heavy enough to bruise your ego and your ribs. Players wore protective padding and could only use their hips, elbows, and knees to strike the ball. No hands, no feet, no mercy from gravity. You imagine the sound, the hollow thud of rubber against limestone, the cheers of the crowd, the measured pace of the chant accompanying every play. Historians still argue whether losing teams were truly sacrificed, or if only ceremonial captains stood in for the honor. Either way, this was not your average backyard kickball tournament. A young man sits at the edge of the court now, sketching the court lines into a bark paper notebook with a burnt stick. His eyes are focused, but not tense. He draws not to impress, but to remember. You nod at him. He nods back, then points to a small structure at the edge of the plaza. Curious, you walk over. It's a glyph house, a kind of scriptorial shrine where scribes and artists gathered to preserve history, not with words, but with symbols. Inside, the walls are covered in red and black drawings, Scenes of feasts, storms, births, and starlight. You trace your fingers over one depiction, a figure holding a jade mask in one hand and a jaguar paw in the other. It's poetic. It's confusing. It's probably both. Beside it, another mural shows a woman mid-dance, surrounded by floating cacao pods. You smile. Even gods like snacks. On a low shelf, stacks of folded codices, bark paper books, rest beneath carved stones to keep them safe from wind. You're allowed to open one. Gently. Inside, line after line of glyphs and images. Some familiar now, some mysterious. The scribe watches you from the doorway, silently approving. You close the codex and offer a respectful nod. You continue your stroll toward the eastern edge of the city, where the temples grow taller and the jungle recedes like it's paying respect. You pass a garden where women tend to medicinal herbs, chaya, basil, garlic vine, and others whose names you don't know but smell ancient. One woman crushes leaves with a stone pestle and adds a drop of honey. She holds the mixture to your nose. You inhale. Your sinuses tingle. Your mind clears. She presses the mixture into a clay bowl and gestures for you to carry it. "Give this to the midwife," she says, then returns to her plants without further instruction. So now you're on a mission. You follow a narrow trail lined with flowers, marigolds, mostly, with petals the color of fire. The scent leads you to a small hut tucked into the hillside, smoke drifting from its vented thatch. Inside, a woman sits beside a young girl who looks ready to deliver her first child. The air is thick with steam, the scent of crushed herbs and sweat and something else, expectancy. You hand the clay bowl to the midwife. She sniffs it, nods, and pours the paste into a hollowed gourd, mixing it with warm water. The girl drinks. She breathes. She winces. You step back, letting the moment stay sacred. The midwife smiles at you and says, "This is how gods enter the world." You step outside again. The jungle is hushed. Even the birds seem to know something important is happening behind that woven curtain. You sit on a stone outside and watch the sky shift overhead. The light grows thick and gold again. A breeze tugs at your robe, carrying the scent of roasted squash and honey from the market still clinging to your skin. You feel yourself settle, not into sleep, not yet, but into stillness. The kind that comes when your body and the world finally agree on something. A slow movement beside you, an old man approaches, balancing a bundle of obsidian blades and painted gourds. He doesn't speak, just sits beside you and begins to carve small designs into the dirt with a twig. You recognize some of them. A maze god, a serpent, a spiral. Then he draws one you've never seen, a circle with jagged lines through it. You glance at him. He winks, then gets up and disappears down the trail. The symbol remains. You stare at it for a long time, until the light grows softer, and the hush of dusk starts to hum around you. You rise slowly, your legs reluctant, but your spirit grounded. The ball court, the glyphs, the midwife's hut, they stay behind, like chapters bookmarked in the margins of your mind. You walk forward, because the night hasn't ended yet, and the story still has more to whisper. The path grows quieter now, as if even the stones beneath your feet are pausing to listen. You follow it east, where the last light of the day glints off the tops of the taller temples, those sharp, geometric silhouettes that stretch above the canopy like silent witnesses. A pair of parrots argue overhead in a language too colorful for human tongues. One of them drops a fruit pit that narrowly misses your head. You consider this their blessing. Probably. The trail splits, and you follow the incline toward a ridge that overlooks the edge of the city. From here, the vastness of the jungle becomes real rolling green hills in every direction, tangled with shadow and mist. Somewhere out there are other cities, other plazas, other people performing the same morning rituals, offering the same cacao to the gods, weaving the same dreams into cloth. But here, right here, is a village on the fringe of the city center. Smaller, quieter, more lived in than ceremonial. This is where the families sleep, where grandmothers grind maize at dusk, and where children fall asleep to stories of serpent gods and clever hummingbirds. The scent of roasting chapulines greets you. Yes, grasshoppers. Crunchy, toasted with lime and chili. They're more delicious than they have any right to be. A man offers you a handful in a folded banana leaf. You pop one in your mouth. Crunch. Tangy. Weirdly satisfying. You follow the laughter to a communal hearth where people gather to share food, news, and the occasional dramatic retelling of someone tripping over a root in front of the high priest. They welcome you without hesitation, shuffling aside to make space on a stone bench worn smooth by generations of good conversation. The evening meal is simple maize cakes, beans, squash with chili, and a bowl of xocolotl, a more savory version of cacao. This one with chili, ground seeds, and a whisper of smoke. It's a meal that says, we know what we like, and we've liked it for centuries. You watch as a boy runs from house to house, delivering a bundle of herbs. He stops every so often to bow at doorways. One of the elders smiles and explains, he's learning the ways of Keenam balance of body and spirit. His job is to observe, not speak. You nod, chewing thoughtfully. The grasshopper legs are getting stuck in your teeth a little, but it's a small price to pay for enlightenment. Nearby, an elder begins to tell a story. Everyone hushes without being asked. He holds up a carved figurine of a howler monkey, one hand raised to its mouth as if mid-gossip. They were once scribes. The elder begins. But they talked too much and wrote too little. The crowd chuckles. Now they chatter from the trees, hoping someone will write their stories for them. You look toward the jungle, where sure enough a pair of howlers begin their evening performance. Loud, proud, probably still bad at spelling. Historians still debate whether the monkey gods were revered or ridiculed. Maybe both. The Maya weren't known for binary thinking. As the firelight flickers, the elder's voice softens into a chant. Not a lullaby, not quite. More like a braided tale of warning and wonder. A girl beside you hums along, eyes closed, her hands shaping invisible threads in the air. She's making the story visible in her own way. The meal ends, and people begin to drift away toward their thatched homes. Smoke curls from chimneys, mingling with the stars. You're invited to stay in one of the homes, just a single-room hut with reed mats on the floor, soft blankets woven from agave fiber, and a carved turtle shell used as a headrest. Surprisingly comfortable. Not exactly a memory foam mattress, but you'll take it. You lie down and watch the shadows on the wall flicker as the last embers glow. Outside, frogs begin their midnight symphony. A woman enters, carrying a bowl of crushed leaves and fragrant oils. She rubs it between her palms and waves the scent over you. For dreams, she says. Good ones. You breathe in deeply. The scent is minty, slightly bitter, grounding, maybe even magical. Who are you to question a woman who smells like moonlight and tamales? She leaves, and you hear her soft chant outside the door, guarding your dreams like a whispered shield. As you drift into a doze, your mind replaying jaguar dances and cacao sips and slightly too crunchy bugs, you realize something. This isn't a civilization of vanished ruins and ancient myths. This is a place of rhythm, of daily grace, of stories that keep their eyes open at night just to see who's still listening. You doze for a few hours, long enough for dreams to slosh around like water in a bowl. But before the sun rises, a flute sounds gently outside. It's not an alarm, it's a summons. You rise slowly, stretch, and step out into the chill of dawn, where the sky is still navy blue and the stars are being gently escorted home. You follow the sound of the flute toward the observatory, a place both sacred and scientific, where priests and stargazers blurred into the same person. The building rises before you, not massive, but deliberate. Its angles aren't for decoration, they're for alignment. Windows in the walls frame specific constellations. Stone staircases lead to platforms where sky watchers would mark the sun's position day by day. Like notches in a story too long for any scroll, you climb, heart steady, mind alert despite the early hour. At the top, a man in a feathered robe raises a polished shell and gazes through it like a telescope. He gestures to you. You look through. The stars shift. You see a jaguar leaping across the sky. You see a snake swallowing its tail. You see your own reflection superimposed on constellations carved before your ancestors had names. The man whispers, "Tonight, the gods play ball." You glance toward the eastern horizon, where the sun threatens to rise but hasn't yet. The world is holding its breath. You're not just watching history, you're part of it. The stars begin their retreat as the sky melts from navy into a greyish lavender, then rose gold. You stand at the observatory's edge, a few feathers from the priest's headdress, brushing your arm as he lowers his shell lens. He doesn't speak, and neither do you, because the hush of dawn in a Mayan city isn't something to interrupt. It's something you step aside for, like royalty passing in silence. A single conch shell sounds from the main plaza, low and long like the world is being stirred awake with a yawn. You descend the steps slowly, feeling the ancient grooves worn into the stone beneath your bare feet. Each step is smoother than the last, as if thousands before you polished the way with their own sleepy travels. You head toward the plaza, where the city begins to rouse in small motions, grinding stones beginning their rhythmic scrape, firewood crackling, clay pots being set into ash beds. People stretch in doorways, blink up at the sky, and begin tying their sashes for the day. In the center of the plaza, a stone platform waits. Not grand, not imposing, more like a very old coffee table someone forgot to move indoors. A young priest kneels beside it, carefully laying out offerings on its sun-warmed surface, cacao beans, squash blossoms, a slice of fish so fresh it still smells like river stones. He lights a bit of copal resin, and smoke rises in lazy twists, curling like a serpent's daydream. You sit nearby, letting the scent wrap around you. The ritual is simple, gentle, no grand gestures, just gratitude offered like breath. Then the priest begins to speak not loudly, but clearly. It's a calendar chant, a poetic recitation of the day's significance. Not just it's Tuesday, but rather it is the day of wind, beneath the sign of the jaguar, in the cycle of smoke. Each term layered with meaning. Historians still argue how universally the Mayan calendar systems were applied, from region to region, or whether local traditions superseded grander astronomical tracking. But here, now, it doesn't matter. The rhythm feels personal. The words seem to hum directly into your chest. The chant continues, naming ancestors, elements, the gods responsible for today's weather, and even a small aside to the village's bee colony. Apparently, the bees are doing very well. Good to know. As the sun finally breaks the edge of the eastern hills, everyone in the plaza turns slightly toward it, not in forced reverence, but like sunflowers. I love how you captured that sense of sacredness in the everyday. The way you describe the woman with the tamales feels like an offering, a quiet act of connection, no need for words, just the unspoken warmth of being present. And that bite of tamal, the imagery of food as prayer, really hits home. It's like you're invited to partake in something deeper than sustenance, a moment of grace. The kids in their animal masks add such a playful, yet reverential layer to the scene. That dance, that joy, it's as if every movement, every laugh, is part of something ancient, something eternal. The mix of ritual and play feels like the pulse of a place where the sacred is woven into the very fabric of life. The elder drawing a spiral in the dust feels like a natural next step in the scene, a kind of silent intention being set. There's something so meditative about that action. Do you see the spiral as a symbol of something specific in this setting? Or is it more about the flow, the unfolding of the moment itself? People gather, circling him. He explains today's spiral isn't just any spiral. It represents the path of Venus across the sky. You blink. You knew the Maya were good with astronomy, but this is next level. He points upward. Venus, now barely visible in the brightening sky, still glimmers for a moment longer. Then it's gone, but the spiral stays. The elder hands the stick to a small boy, who continues the design. Careful, tongue sticking out in concentration. You smile, remembering your own childhood attempts at copying older hands. Then someone takes your hand. It's the woman from the garden, the one with the fragrant dream paste. She pulls you gently to your feet and leads you down a narrow trail through a grove of sacred saber trees. Their roots twist above ground like sleeping serpents, and their trunks stretch so high the branches disappear into a canopy of green light. "These are the world trees," she murmurs, voice like wind in a clay flute. Roots below, trunk here, branches in the heavens. You nod. It makes sense in a way that doesn't need translating. She places your hand on the bark. It's warm, slightly rough, buzzing with something ancient and electric. The Maya believed the ceiba tree connected the underworld, the earth, and the sky. And in this moment, you understand why. You feel grounded and floating all at once. A hummingbird zips by again, this time pausing in front of your face like a punctuation mark. You whisper, "Okay," to no one in particular. You walk with the woman until you reach a small spring bubbling from the base of a hill. She fills a gourd with water and hands it to you. You drink. It's cold, earthy, a little sweet, like rain that waited 300 years to find your lips. You thank her. She's already gone. You sit by the spring for a while, the sound of water replacing all the noise you used to carry. The air here feels different, doesn't it? Thick with the weight of history, yet alive with the hum of daily existence. The milpa is a living testament to resilience, a partnership between people and the earth that's as old as the jungle itself. It's not just about planting, it's about listening, knowing when to harvest, when to let the land rest, when to sow. There's a rhythm to it, one that's been passed down in stories, in songs, and in the very steps of those who have walked this path long before you. The stone platforms rise like a memory, reminders that these structures were built to last, not for grandeur, but for purpose. And here, among them, you can almost feel the footsteps of generations, each one contributing to the quiet continuity of life. Have you noticed how everything in the milpa is in its place, perfectly attuned to the environment? The trees stand like guardians, and the land, carefully tended, offers up its bounty without asking for much in return. It's a dance between man and nature, one that has always been a part of the heart of this place. Do you ever feel that pull when you're in nature, as if your feet somehow know the way, as if the land has been waiting for you to come back? Corn, beans, and squash grow together in sacred triangulation. The corn rises tall, the beans climb its stalks, and the squash sprawls across the ground, keeping weeds away like an edible welcome mat. A man kneels in the earth, planting beans with careful, calloused hands. He doesn't speak to the plants. He listens. Then he grunts softly, not at you, but at a dog that's attempting to steal a corn cob from a basket. The dog succeeds anyway. You walk the edge of the milpa. It hums with life, dragonflies skimming the beans, ants performing supply runs that would put modern delivery apps to shame. Every few steps, a small shrine peeks out from the greenery carved stones with offerings of copal, feathers, and even a crust of bread. Devotion here isn't flashy. It's folded into daily life like spices into stew. Nearby, a group of women grind maize on flat stones called metates, their arms moving in rhythmic arcs. The sound is hypnotic, stone on stone, grit meeting intention. You sit and watch for a while. One of them pats your shoulder and offers you a fresh tortilla, steaming and soft. You take a bite. It's warm. It's alive. Historians still argue whether maize cultivation began as a necessity or a spiritual offering first. But here, eating this tortilla in the shade of a corn god's smile, you lean toward the latter. You ask the woman if the metate has always belonged to her family. She nods and points at its chipped edge. My mother. Her mother. Her mother. She says, each chip like a fingerprint passed down. One day it will remember you too. You smile, honored, a little awed, and incredibly full of corn. As you stretch your legs again and rise, a boy appears beside you with a gourd drum. He taps it softly and beckons. Without questioning, you follow. He leads you toward a weaver's hut. Its walls open to the air and strung with brilliant colored threads that dance in the breeze. Inside, a woman works a backstrap loom, the fabric growing with every motion of her body. The loom is tied to a wooden beam and strapped around her waist, every twist and tension pulled through her own frame, like she's stitching herself into history. You watch as geometric shapes and stylized animals emerge from the weave birds mid-flight. Jaguar paws, swirling wind glyphs. She nods toward an unfinished cloth nearby and gestures for you to sit. You hesitate. She insists. So you kneel beside her, awkward at first, your fingers too soft, too slow. But she guides you left hand here, right hand there. Now breathe. You do. And suddenly, the pattern reveals itself. Not in the thread, but in the rhythm. Weaving, like walking, becomes a kind of listening. The boy with the drum taps gently, as if providing background music for your concentration. His rhythm syncs with the loom, and your breath, and your thoughts. You glance at your tiny row of patterns, crooked, shy, but undeniably there. A beginning, a belonging. She ties off the thread for you, then rolls the cloth and places it in your arms. Yours, she says. You made it. Let it keep you warm when the gods get noisy. You thank her, cradling the cloth like a child, and step back out into the sunlight, which now tilts more golden than before. Time, here, bends like vines around a tree trunk, slow, steady, deliberate. The boy has vanished, drum and all. You walk on, past a group of children stacking stones to build a miniature temple. One of them waves and says something that sounds like, "You forgot to paint the stars." You nod solemnly and say, "I'll remember next time." Ahead, a woman prepares dye from crushed cochineal beetles, bright red like poppies on fire. She dips cloth into it, humming. The color seeps in like a secret being told, irreversible, rich, unrepentant. "Blood of the sun," she says, wringing out the fabric. The gods like their cloaks vivid. You laugh quietly. She wasn't joking. She hands you a scrap of crimson-dyed cotton. It stains your fingers. You don't mind. You keep walking. Now the sound of flutes returns, layered this time with the rattle of seed pod shakers and the low thump of turtle shell drums. You round a bend and arrive at a small ritual dance circle where young dancers move in slow spirals around a central fire. Their feet pat the earth in deliberate, elegant rhythm, not for show, for memory. One dancer wears a quetzal feather cape that flares like a waterfall every time she spins. Another wears a jaguar mask carved from dark wood, its teeth just shy of fierce. Their movements aren't choreographed by any rulebook. They're passed through muscle and story, rhythm and intuition. You find a place at the edge of the circle and sit, not to watch, to remember. Because that's what this is, a library made of motion. The fire crackles in the center, throwing shadows that dance with the dancers, blurring the line between bodies and stories. Historians still argue whether ritual dance was more political, religious, or social. But here, in this glowing, breathing circle, it's all of those and none. It simply is. You close your eyes for a moment, and in the flickering heat behind your eyelids, you see maize gods pirouetting with jaguars, hummingbirds teaching rhythm to the wind. When you open them, the dance is still going, and so are you. You stand, you join the circle, your feet remember, the earth responds, and the story spirals on. The spiral never really ends, it just loosens and reforms elsewhere. As you step out from the dance circle, your breath is slower now, more aligned with the forest itself. You're not walking so much as gliding, wrapped in the echo of the drums still resonating beneath your skin. Your feet brush across a carpet of fallen petals and loamy soil, guided by instinct more than memory. You pass a group of boys chasing each other with wooden swords, their shouts mixing with bird calls. One of them turns and bows dramatically, declaring himself Ahau, king of the afternoon nap, before collapsing onto a mat of palm fronds. His subjects follow suit, and within seconds, they're napping. You consider doing the same, but the scent of smoke and honey in the air tugs you forward. You arrive at a beekeeping terrace, nestled into a sun-warmed slope. Unlike modern apiaries, this one is woven directly into the jungle's pulse. Hollowed logs called jobones sit in tidy rows, each housing a colony of stingless Melipona bees, small, gentle, and sacred to the Maya. A young woman approaches, her hair braided with yellow flowers, hands sticky with fresh wax. She nods and gestures for you to come closer. You crouch beside one of the logs as she lifts a plug from its side and dips a spoon into the golden liquid inside. She offers you a taste. It's not like supermarket honey. It's brighter floral, citrusy, almost electric on your tongue, like the sunlight itself decided to settle down and become edible. She explains the bees are more than honeymakers. They're spirit messengers. Their hives are placed near temples and homes alike to encourage dreams and protect thoughts. People whisper their secrets to the hives, trusting the bees to carry them to the gods. You wonder what you'd whisper. Maybe not a secret. Maybe just a thank you. You walk on, licking honey from your fingers as the jungle leans in around you again. A little farther along, you hear the soft whoosh of weaving, not cloth this time, but reed mats, shaped into sleeping rolls, door coverings, even walls. A group of elders sits in a circle, passing bundles of palm and rivergrass between them like some ancient board game. Their fingers move with a speed and confidence that borders on supernatural. One woman pats the ground beside her and hands you a bundle of reeds. You sit. She shows you how to split, fold, and tuck the strands into each other, slowly forming the tight, orderly pattern of a mat. You're not very good at it. She doesn't mind. Neither do you. She speaks as she weaves not in grand pronouncements, but in drifting recollections, the day the moon vanished for 2 nights, the time a jaguar sat outside her hut and refused to leave, the time her husband mistook a shaman's apprentice for a deer and tried to feed him squash. The stories wrap around you like another layer of the mat, and the reeds bend beneath your fingers, taking shape despite your awkwardness. Historians still debate the social hierarchy of mat makers. Some believe it was men's work. Others say women controlled every strand. But in this moment, hierarchy doesn't matter, only pattern, and patience, and hands doing what hands have done for 1,000 years. You lay your half-finished mat aside and bow your head in thanks. The woman taps your nose with a reed and says, "Your fingers are better at walking than weaving. Fair enough." You continue. The air grows cooler. and the trail opens onto a narrow aqueduct, a marvel of stonework carved to guide fresh water from the hills to the city's heart. Water flows in a steady trickle along the channel, clear enough to reflect the sky. You follow it upstream, marveling at the way the engineers curved the stone so the flow never rushes, never stalls, just hums. Beside the aqueduct, a boy scrubs a clay pot with sand and water. The pot is streaked with soot, its rim chipped. He doesn't mind. He's singing softly, a song about a lizard who tricks the rain. As you listen, another figure appears from behind the trees, a potter, older, barefoot, arms streaked with grey clay up to the elbows. She carries a lump of wet earth in one hand and a bowl in the other. She nods, gestures, and you follow her to a shady work area where rows of vessels bake under the sun. She kneels and begins to shape a new pot, her fingers pinching and smoothing in a rhythm you recognize from the weaving, from the dance, from the spiral itself. Creation here is never rushed. It's lived into. She hands you a ball of clay. You try. It becomes a lopsided cup that would offend even the humblest of coffee gods. She laughs, not unkindly, and sets it aside. For ants, she says. They'll appreciate the effort. You're humbled, also delighted. She then takes you to a nearby kiln, a low circular pit filled with glowing coals and carefully arranged pots. The fire here is controlled with the precision of a heartbeat. Too much heat, and the pots crack. Too little, and they never harden. As you watch her adjust the coals, you realize this isn't just pottery. It's timekeeping, patience, breath, fire, life. You return to the aqueduct, cup your hands, and drink again. The water is cool, fresh, slightly mineral. Your whole body sighs in response. And then footsteps, not hurried, not loud, just firm. You turn to see a messenger, wrapped in a lightweight tunic, carrying a bundle of scrolls in a leather pouch across his back. He pauses, offers you a piece of dried fruit from his belt, and gestures for you to walk with him. You do. He tells you mostly with gestures and short phrases that he's on his way to a nearby village with a message encoded in glyphs. You ask what it says. He shrugs. Not mine to read. Only carry. You nod. There's something beautiful about that kind of trust, and something comforting about being near someone who knows exactly where they're going, even if you don't. You walk together until the fork in the path, where he nods once and disappears into the foliage. The silence left behind feels clean. You sit at the base of a small stela, its stone face worn with age. The glyphs are faded but still whisper if you look long enough. You trace your fingers over the curves and corners. Someone once stood here and wrote this. For you, maybe not. But now, you're part of the story anyway. The spiral has looped you in, and the journey continues. You rise from the mossy base of the stela, the grooves of its ancient glyphs still tingling on your fingertips. The morning's cool has lifted, replaced by a warm breeze that carries the faint scent of roasted cacao and crushed flowers. Somewhere not far off, someone is singing a low, wordless melody that rises and falls like distant waves. The trail before you shifts in texture. Stone gives way to soft earth, dotted with crushed shells and bits of pottery. You've arrived at what was once a bustling artisan quarter, where Mayan craftspeople honed their trades not in isolation, but as part of an intricate ecosystem of beauty, practicality, and devotion. Your eye catches movement beneath a canopy of woven fronds. A pair of jade carvers hunch over a low table, each holding a sliver of green stone no bigger than a fingernail. One uses a thin string coated in fine sand and water, moving it back and forth across the jade like someone flossing the teeth of the gods. They glance up at you and smile, Not the polite grin of strangers, but the knowing smirk of artists who assume you've also made something you're proud of. One beckons you closer and presses a tiny object into your hand. It's a miniature mask, perfectly symmetrical, cool to the touch, with wide, square eyes and a stoic mouth. Face of the wind, the artisan says, to remind you to listen before speaking. Noted. You move on, carefully tucking the jade piece into your pouch alongside the red-dyed cotton and corn husk doll from earlier. You're starting to feel like a time traveler's magpie collecting not shiny things, but echoes. Just beyond the jade workbench, a group of children squats in a circle, hunched over a dusty board marked with white chalk lines. They're playing Patoli, a traditional Mayan board game with black beans and red pebbles as pieces. One girl rolls a handful of marked dice and cheers apparently. She just beat the village record. Her prize, half a tamale, and the right to brag all week. She looks at you and points to the board. Want to lose you grin and sit down. The game is deceptively complex. Movement depends on chance and strategy, and your opponents clearly know all the tricks. Within a few minutes, you've lost most of your pebbles and gained a chorus of giggles. You don't mind. The game, like everything else here, isn't about winning. It's about rhythm. Beside the playing group, a man paints codices accordion-folded books made of bark paper, their surfaces filled with glyphs and brilliant illustrations. He's working on a new page, a twin-headed serpent winding through a sky of turquoise and maize. You ask if you can watch. He doesn't answer, just dips his brush made of agave fiber into the bowl of pigment and continues his careful strokes. Each mark seems to breathe. You sit in silence and let your eyes drift over the other pages laid out to dry star charts, trade records, tales of gods transforming into animals to seduce or trick mortals. Historians still argue how many of these codices survived the Spanish conquest, or whether most were hidden, burned, or buried alongside the priests who knew how to read them. Here, though, the story is still alive. The painter finally sets his brush down and glances sideways at you. If you don't record the gods, he murmurs, they forget who they are. You promise to remember. As you leave, a trail of butterflies follows you down the slope, dozens of them, their wings flashing amber, ivory, and cobalt. They seem to dance around your head like mischievous spirits, whispering secrets in flutters you can almost but not quite understand. The forest grows thicker now, less structured. Ferns unfurl like lazy snakes. You duck under low branches and find yourself at the edge of a cenote, a natural limestone sinkhole filled with clear, shimmering water. This is no ordinary pond. It pulses with stillness, reverence, power. The Maya believed cenotes were gateways to Xibalba, the underworld. Not a place of torment, but of trial, reflection, and mystery. You approach slowly, crouching at the edge. The water is impossibly clear, the bottom invisible in the shifting sunlight. Small fish flicker past like living coins. A single blue heron watches you from a branch overhead, its eyes unblinking. You dip a hand into the water. It's cool, clean, quiet. A young man appears beside you, carrying a ceremonial gourd. He doesn't speak, just kneels and pours honey into the cenote's edge, letting it swirl like golden ink. For the ancestors, he says. You mimic his gesture with a few drops from your pouch's last tamale, which seems fitting. He nods approvingly. Then, from the trees behind you, comes the steady thump of drums, once again deeper this time, echoing in your chest like a heartbeat slowed for sleep. You follow the sound uphill until it crests into a wide, flat platform overlooking the valley below. A final ritual is underway. Dozens of people gather, faces painted with patterns of sun and maize. Some wear feathered cloaks. Others carry obsidian blades, glinting like frozen lightning in the sun. No violence here, though. These blades are tools of symbolism now cutting away bad luck. doubt, and dreams gone sour. A priest steps forward, his hands outstretched. He chants, not in words you know, but in cadences that mimic thunder, rain, and wind. He walks among the crowd, brushing each person's shoulder with a bundle of dried herbs. When he reaches you, he pauses. He doesn't touch your shoulder. He hands you the bundle. You take it and feel it pulse. He smiles, a deep, satisfied smile. You walked well, he says. And just like that, the ritual ends. People disperse, laughing, chattering, trailing off in every direction. The platform slowly empties, and you're left alone, holding your bundle of herbs, your pouch of treasures, and the weightless echo of all the things you've now lived through. You sit at the platform's edge, legs dangling. The wind picks up. It smells like limestone and flowers. You close your eyes and listen to the earth remembering itself. The breeze doesn't rush, it drifts, winding around you with the kind of casual grace that only old forests and old gods know how to summon. Leaves whisper things you don't quite catch. I love how you've captured that sense of connection with the land. How it's not just a space you move through, but something that holds memory and purpose. It feels like you're stepping into a living history, one that pulses beneath the surface with every step. The way the path is lined with stones, simple but deliberate, reminds me of how ancient civilizations blended functionality with meaning. Every detail, even something as practical as channeling water, has a deeper layer. It's a good reminder of how long human beings have been in tune with the natural world, shaping it in subtle but lasting ways. And then the boy, crouched at the temple. His counsel of the sky sounds like an invitation into a world that isn't just about the physical world around you, but also about the stories and energies that reside there. A duck with a crown. Though I'm fascinated by that. Maybe it's a playful spirit, a trickster god, or something symbolic. What do you think the boy sees in these figurines? Are they just toys for him? Or do they hold some kind of ritual or meaning? He points at the crowned duck. That one's new. You kneel beside him and rearrange the duck so it's flanked by two monkeys and a warrior holding what looks like a pineapple. He nods sagely. Balance. Behind you, a soft laugh. A young woman leans against the wall, watching. Her tunic is decorated with shells, and a garland of marigolds crowns her head. She beckons you closer. You follow her inside the temple, where the light dims, filtered through thin openings high in the stone walls. A faint, citrusy incense lingers in the air, burned orange peels and crushed resin. In the center of the room lies a codex, its bark pages unfolded across a raised platform, not locked in a case, not behind rope or glass, just waiting. She watches you as you approach. No warning, no do not touch, so you don't touch. You read. The glyphs pulse with color red for bloodlines, blue for stars, green for crops. Illustrations frame the margins, gods standing on crocodiles, birds delivering scrolls, a man eating corn while turning into lightning. History, the woman says, is best told in layers. She traces a circle in the air with her finger. Words, breath, bone, soil, repeat. You ask her how old the codex is. She shrugs. As old as tomorrow. Outside again. The boy has added a clay toucan to the council. It perches proudly above the duck. You salute them both and walk on. The sun is higher now, baking the earth in lazy pulses of heat. You pass a group of women seated beneath a thatched roof, working on ceremonial fans made of feathers and gold-threaded palm. Each one is different, some shaped like stars, others like jaguar claws, others still like open hands. One woman waves you over and places a half-finished fan in your lap. This one cools foolish questions. She jokes. Very popular. You laugh. Then, of course, try to make one yourself. It ends up a little crooked, a bit more porcupine than panther, but you're proud nonetheless. She fastens a bead to its edge, so it knows who made it, she explains. You hold it close, and suddenly, you're cooler. The fan works. Magic, no. Just craftsmanship so good it fools the body. You continue walking, fanning yourself gently, passing a group of elders, telling stories to an eager audience of children. One elder describes the time he saw a bat god wearing sandals made of obsidian. Another swears she once bartered with a hummingbird for a necklace. Everyone believes them, not because the stories are likely, but because they're beautiful. Historians still argue whether Mayan oral traditions distorted over generations or remained strikingly accurate. But watching the sparkle in these kids' eyes, you realize it doesn't matter. The truth here is shaped like wonder. The children beg for more stories, but the elders stand, brushing off their cloaks. One whispers to you, the rest must be dreamed. You nod. It seems only fair. The path now veers toward a long, low building, a kitchen of sorts, though not like the ones you know. It's open on all sides, with clay ovens, stone hearths, and baskets overflowing with tamarind, chili, squash blossoms, and dark, wrinkled cacao pods. A cook waves you over. She's middle-aged, arms strong from years of kneading, lifting, stirring. Without a word, she hands you a stone pestle and points to a bowl of toasted cacao nibs. You start grinding. It's harder than it looks. The nibs resist, cracking and scattering, until finally they begin to release oil and transform into a gritty paste. Now chili, she says, handing you a dried red pod. You crush that too. The aromas rise together, earthy chocolate and smoky fire. Then honey. Then grind annatto seeds. Soon, your bowl glows red-brown, and she pours in hot water, stirring until the paste dissolves into a frothy, steaming drink. You sip. It kicks. Spicy. Bitter. Sweet. Electric. You grin. She grins. And for a moment, it's like you've both spoken the same language without saying a word. She hands you a wrapped tamale, soft, warm, filled with squash and beans. For your journey, she says. You thank her and move on. The path narrows now, winding around an overgrown platform where a young scribe sits cross-legged, sketching a lizard onto a piece of bark paper. He glances up, then returns to his work, tongue peeking from the corner of his mouth in concentration. You sit beside him. Say nothing. Eventually, he turns the drawing toward you. The lizard is dancing. You ask what for. He replies, celebrating something it forgot. That feels strangely accurate. You stand, stretch, and take the final few steps up a steep staircase. At the top is a wide plaza overlooking the jungle canopy. You're higher than the parrots now, higher than the temples that once felt massive. The wind lifts your hair, and in the stillness, a slow smile blooms on your face. You pull out the pouch from your side and take stock of your souvenirs: the crooked fan, the smudged cup, the feather, the maize doll, the little jade mask. Not priceless, but precious. But artifacts of your presence, not your conquest. You sit at the plaza's edge and rest your eyes. You've earned it, and the jungle holds you like a memory it doesn't want to forget. Somewhere behind you, a bird cackles, like it just told the funniest joke the forest's ever heard. You smile, eyes still closed, letting the breeze carry the sound away. You're not in a hurry anymore. You haven't been for a while now. The Mayan rhythm has seeped into your bones, uncoiling time like a snake curling around a warm stone. Eventually, you rise and descend the stairs again, this time with the pace of someone who knows there's nowhere more important to be than here. The trail leads you to a quiet grove where the air grows cool and heavy with moisture. Lichen clings to trees, and sunlight filters in sideways, bouncing off the slick limestone in greenish flecks. Ahead, a clearing opens to reveal a low altar surrounded by carved stelae, slender stone slabs covered in glyphs and regal faces. You recognize one of them from earlier, the Sun King with the feathered jaw and palms outstretched in command. But beside him now stands a queen, her headdress nearly touching the top of the stone. She isn't smiling, exactly, more like judging the quality of your dreams. A young man tends to the altar, wiping away moss and brushing dust from the base of the carvings with a soft rag made from woven bark fibers. When he sees you, he gestures to a small basket of offerings, cocoa beans, bright feathers, a piece of polished obsidian, and a withered corn husk twisted into the shape of a bird. He points to it and whispers. She remembers who brings the birds. You choose a feather turquoise, sleek, a little frayed, and lay it gently at the queen's feet. The man nods solemnly and returns to his careful brushing. Above the altar, a tree has grown sideways, its roots wrapped around the structure like a protective serpent. Embedded in one of its roots is a shard of jade. How it got there, no one knows. Maybe a gift, maybe a punishment, or maybe the tree just got greedy. Historians still argue whether trees like this growing around temples were planted intentionally or revered after the fact. But in this moment, the argument feels irrelevant. The tree is part of the temple now, just like the wind, just like you. As you turn to leave, the man taps your shoulder and holds up a long, narrow flute carved from bone. He raises it to his lips and plays a few notes slow, meandering, mournful. It sounds like a bird getting lost in its own song. You keep that melody in your pocket as you walk on. The path splits here, and you follow the narrower one, overgrown, slightly crooked, a little too quiet. It leads you to a ceremonial platform made entirely of crushed seashells. It crunches underfoot like walking on whispers. At the center sits a sunstone disc, half buried in the soil and tilted slightly askew. You kneel beside it, brush away a layer of moss, and find that it's carved with both glyphs and star patterns, circles within circles, like a celestial bullseye. A woman approaches from the far side of the platform. Her arms are covered in tiny white dots of limestone dust, and her eyes reflect a light that isn't coming from the sky. "You're early," she says, not unkindly, "for what you ask." She doesn't answer. Instead, she kneels beside the stone and begins rearranging tiny carved tokens into its grooves, each shaped like an animal, each polished smooth from handling. You watch in silence. After a few minutes, she stands, looks up at the sky, and smiles. Now it knows we were here. Then she vanishes into the trees. You glance back at the sunstone. The animals now form a spiral. You wonder if they always did and you just didn't see it before. Downhill again now, and your legs protest a bit. But the forest rewards you with a view, a hidden garden, walled in with vines and flowering trees. Inside, everything seems exaggerated greener, richer, as if nature had been hoarding her best pigments for this exact spot. A group of women tends to butterfly enclosures, each one a delicate mesh dome filled with fluttering color. They work gently, coaxing caterpillars onto leaves, sprinkling powdered pollen, whispering to the wings. One woman waves you over and places a newly hatched butterfly on your open palm. It sits still at first. Then, with a slow motion that feels rehearsed by the gods, it lifts its wings and flies upward, spiraling once above your head before disappearing into the canopy. You exhale like you've been holding your breath since the stone altar. You thank her with a nod, and she smiles without a word. Further along the path, another small group has gathered around a storyteller, an older man with skin like bark and a voice like sandalwood smoke. He speaks slowly, in circles, telling a tale about a mischievous god who tried to steal the moon and ended up dropping it into a cenote, where it became a fish that only sings on Wednesdays. The children listening don't even question it. They just nod, like, yes, obviously. The man sees you and pauses mid-sentence. You, he says. You look like someone who's seen the Duck Council. You nod. He grins, triumphant, then resumes the story. You stay through the end. As you rise to leave, he tosses you a small stone etched with a spiral, smoothed by time. A reminder, he says, that you're always in the middle, even when you think you're at the end. You pocket the stone and keep walking. You cross a stream via a narrow stone bridge, slick with moss and shaped like a serpent's back. On the far side, the forest thins, and a field opens before you dotted with chicle trees, their bark scored in diagonal lines, sticky resin bleeding from the cuts. A boy collects the sap in a small clay bowl. You ask him what it's for. Chewing gum, he says. You blink. Chewing what now? He hands you a hardened ball of resin. Try it. You do. It's bitter at first, then earthy, then just satisfying. Not sweet, not flavored. Just a thing to chew, to work your jaw as you watch the trees bend in the wind and listen to the forest discuss tomorrow's rain. You nod in appreciation. He bows in mock ceremony and returns to his harvesting. You sit by the edge of the field, chewing quietly, eyes drifting upward. The sky has shifted colors again, amber and rust now, with streaks of lavender. You realize you've been walking through this place for what feels like both a lifetime and a blink, and you still haven't seen everything. You stretch your legs, rise slowly, and follow the path as it curves gently into twilight. Still more to see, still more to carry, and the jungle hums its agreement. Evening doesn't fall in the jungle. It arrives like a whisper, coiling low through the trees, brushing over your skin before you even notice the light has changed. The air thickens, not unpleasantly, but like a blanket being pulled over your shoulders by unseen hands. The shadows stretch, and everything glows with that gentle, syrupy hue only dusk can manage. You follow the curve of the path, your sandals whispering against packed dirt as fireflies blink to life one by one, like the stars are rehearsing their entrance. A low rumble pulses through the ground, not thunder drums, always drums. Ahead, torchlight flickers between stone columns, and the smell of burning copal resin seeps into your nostrils, sharp, sacred, smoky. You've come upon a ritual plaza, wide and smooth, ringed with painted walls and benches made of polished limestone. In the center, a low stone altar, and beside it, a woman in ceremonial robes, her face painted in bold swirls of red and blue. She's not alone. A semicircle of villagers stands barefoot on the warm stones, each holding a different object to gourd, a clay pot, a feather, a folded cloth. They chant not loudly, but in murmurs, the kind that tremble through your ribcage more than your ears. You step into the ring. No one stops you. The woman raises a shallow bowl filled with water and crushed marigold petals. She tips it slowly, letting a few droplets splash onto the altar stone. Then she dips a bundle of herbs into the bowl and gently flicks water in every direction, misting the crowd, misting you. And just like that, you're part of it. One of them. Welcome. She speaks not in direct words, but in poetry. We give thanks to the east, where the sun begins. We give thanks to the west, where dreams return. You echo it in your heart, even if your lips are still catching up. One by one, the villagers place their items on the altar. When it's your turn, you reach into your pouch and pull out the carved spiral stone the storyteller gave you. You place it gently beside the feather fan and the maze doll. The woman smiles. You carry the middle well. The chant fades. The torches crackle, and the night begins to breathe more slowly. You move toward the edge of the plaza, where a narrow staircase leads down to a subterranean chamber, cool air rising from below, scented faintly with damp stone and crushed flowers. You descend carefully, your hand brushing the carved balustrade. The walls are painted with murals, serpents winding through stars, jaguars made of clouds, and gods with hands like rivers. At the bottom, a censer still smoking, its embers pulsing with lazy determination. A girl sits beside it, fanning the coals. She doesn't look up when she speaks. This is where we speak to those who don't use words anymore. You ask if she means the ancestors. She shrugs. Them, and the ones who haven't happened yet. You don't quite understand. She laughs. You will. She hands you a pinch of dried petals and nods toward the fire. You drop them in. They crackle, releasing a scent so familiar it makes your chest ache, like a memory from a dream you don't remember having. You sit with her for a while, listening to the fire talk to itself. When you climb back to the surface, the stars have taken their places overhead. They're brighter here, less shy, flickering like gossip across the night's velvet face. You follow a torchlit path to a long wooden banquet table beneath an open-air shelter. Clay lanterns dangle overhead, glowing orange and red, and the table is already covered in platters of food, tamales wrapped in banana leaves, roasted squash, bowls of spiced beans, and a centerpiece dish that looks suspiciously like roasted iguana. You don't ask. You just sit. People gather, laughing, passing bowls, trading jokes in a blend of ancient words and glances. You're handed a cup of frothy cacao, still warm. Someone nudges a basket of roasted plantains your way. A child offers you a folded cloth napkin that smells faintly of jasmine. Dinner begins, not with a speech, but a song soft and low, hummed from across the table and picked up one by one like a candle being passed from hand to hand. You eat. You laugh. You try the iguana. It's fine. A man across from you raises a wooden cup and toasts to the stars, who gossip better than we do. You drink to that. Later, as the plates are cleared and the night ripens, a small group rises and begins to dance, not in lines or circles, but as if they're being pulled gently by threads only they can see. You join without meaning to, your body moving the way trees move in wind, slow, swaying, not always symmetrical, but exactly right. You twirl, you trip, you laugh. Someone catches you. They don't let go right away. Eventually, breathless and warm, you return to the edge of the dance and sink down onto a woven mat. You lie back, the stars above you sharp and endless. Next to you, an old woman snores gently, her mouth slightly open, her feet still dusty from the plaza. You close your eyes and feel your pulse sinking with the drums again, those quiet, steady heartbeats of the earth. And for the first time in what might be a very long time, or just the span of one good meal, you feel completely known. Not famous, not important, just known. The jungle rustles. A jaguar coughs in the distance. Someone nearby hums the moon back into place. And you sleep. You wake to the sound of grinding stone, rhythmic, deliberate, like the heartbeat of the earth wearing sandals. Dawn hasn't quite arrived yet, but the air is cool and damp, thick with promise. A pale lavender glow fingers its way through the trees, brushing your cheeks with morning's first ideas. You rise slowly, stretching beneath a woven blanket you don't remember being covered with. Someone must have tucked you in while you dreamed of starlit jaguars and gossiping constellations. You look around. The banquet tables are empty now, cleaned and swept as if the feast never happened. Only the lingering smell of roasted maize and chocolate remains history written in vapor. You follow the sound of the grinding, stepping barefoot through the soft dirt. The jungle yawns around you, vines stretching overhead, leaves glittering with dew. You arrive at a grinding circle, where 3 women sit cross-legged, hunched over flat stones called metates. Their arms move in slow arcs as they crush roasted cacao beans into a dark, sticky paste. One looks up, nods, and gestures to the empty spot beside her. You sit. The stone is cool beneath your hands. She hands you a handful of beans, still warm, still carrying the ghost of last night's fire. You begin to grind, mimicking her rhythm. Press forward, roll back, lean in. It's hypnotic, comforting, like telling a secret without speaking. After a while, she adds honey and ground chili to your paste, a splash of water. She stirs it with a carved wooden stick until it froths, then pours it into a small clay cup. You sip. This time, it's different, less spicy, more grounded, like the difference between falling in love and being in love. She nods approvingly. Then, like mist, she disappears down a side trail, leaving you with your thoughts and your cup. You walk. The trail leads you to a small schoolhouse, not in the traditional sense. No desks, no chalk, just open air and woven mats. A group of children sits in a loose semicircle around an elder who is sketching glyphs into the dirt with a stick. You sit behind them, listening. Today's lesson is on names. He points to one glyph and says, "This is a child born in the season of strong winds." He draws another. This one was named after the moon's second blink. Each child in turn draws their own name into the dirt. Some are practiced, proud. Others are clumsy, lines wobbling like nervous laughter. The elder smiles through all of them. He invites you to try. You hesitate, then draw a spiral. He nods. That one's old. Good choice. Beside the schoolhouse, a woman tends to a garden of herbs. She invites you to smell each leaf. Some are sharp, citrusy. Others smell like dreams trying to remember themselves. She places a sprig of sleepwort behind your ear and says, "That one keeps the nightmares from getting too loud." You thank her. As you walk again, the path opens into a clearing where a weaver's loom sits beneath a canopy of red flowers. 2 women work side by side, their fingers darting through threads, pulling colors into shape. They invite you to try, guiding your hands as you mimic their movements. The fabric grows beneath your fingers, clumsy, uneven, but yours. They laugh kindly at your mistakes and help you tie off the end. You now hold a small woven band, rough, crooked, imperfect, beautiful. They fasten it to your wrist to remind you what your hands can do. You nod, grateful. Further down the trail, a shallow pool glimmers in the dappled light. It's fed by a gentle spring and surrounded by stones carved into resting animals, foxes, frogs, coiled snakes with half-lidded eyes. You sit on one shaped like a sleepy turtle and dip your feet into the water. It's cold, refreshing, awake. You close your eyes and lean back, listening to the hum of insects, the babble of the spring, the distant beat of a wooden flute. Then a splash. You open your eyes to see a group of children playing on the far side of the pool, tossing flower petals and ducking beneath the surface in fits of laughter. One notices you and waves. You wave back, smiling. A small girl wades over and offers you a petal. It's yellow, delicate, still trembling with the weight of water. You accept it like a royal gift. She giggles and skips away. You carry the petal with you as you return to the trail, tucking it into your pouch beside the feather and the spiral stone. The jungle shifts again. You arrive at a large platform etched with lunar symbols, where an elderly priest gazes at the sky through a hollowed tube carved from bone. He doesn't speak, just tilts the instrument toward the heavens and gestures for you to look. You do. even in daylight. The stars hide there, waiting. He whispers, "Not everything you can't see is gone." You nod. He smiles, then adjusts the tube toward the jungle canopy and mutters, "Sometimes the gods just want a better view." You descend from the platform and continue on, eventually reaching a circular structure with no roof, open to the sky. Inside, dancers move in slow circles, feet padding against the stone in soft, echoing rhythm. They wear cloaks of layered feathers, each color fluttering with every spin. A woman hands you a feathered cloak, simpler than the others, but warm. You drape it over your shoulders and join the ring. Your feet remember how. The circle expands and contracts like breathing, and you breathe with it. After what feels like an hour, or maybe just 10 heartbeats, the music slows. The dancers stop. You remove your cloak, fold it carefully, and bow. One dancer places a hand on your shoulder and whispers. The circle doesn't end, it just moves. You thank her and walk, always forward, always deeper, until the jungle folds again around you and the last of the starlight lingers on your fingertips. The jungle path narrows again, curling like a question mark through a grove of ceiba trees, their roots rising like ribs from the earth, their trunks tall and smooth like giants asleep on their backs. You place a hand on the nearest one. It's warm, surprisingly warm, like the tree has a pulse all its own. The Maya believed these trees were sacred, you recall. The saber connected the heavens, the world, and the underworld, a natural ladder between realms. Standing beneath one, you feel that tug not up or down, but in, as though, if you just leaned the right way, you'd tumble gently into another reality entirely. A small shrine sits at the base of one of the larger trees. It's simple, just a circle of stones, a few wilted flowers, a carved monkey figurine with one hand raised like it's waving at eternity. You offer a silent greeting and move on. The path takes you to a terraced hillside, where rows of crops cascade down in orderly rows: maize, beans, squash, amaranth. A young farmer waves from below, his hat tilted back to reveal a face both sunburned and serene. He invites you to help. You kneel beside him, your fingers sinking into soil still cool from the night. He hands you a handful of seeds and says, "Plant them like you're planting an apology." You smile and do just that. Together, you work in silence. When your row is done, he offers you water from a gourd bottle, its rim smoothed from years of use. You drink, and the water tastes like sky clear, cold, necessary. As you stand, he hands you a sprig of epazote and says, "For your stomach and your luck." You tuck it behind your ear beside the sleepwort, which, by now, has wilted a little, no surprise there. It did its job. You keep moving. The terrain grows rocky, and soon you find yourself in a narrow canyon, its sides etched with ancient petroglyph spirals, hands, suns with too many rays. Some look freshly painted, as if the artists only just stepped away to stretch their legs. A young girl guides you through, her hair tied with shells that rattle softly as she walks. She points to one spiral in particular and says, "That one is for people who get lost on purpose." You nod. "I like those people," she adds, then skips ahead. You follow. The canyon opens onto a high plateau, where wind rushes like a playful animal, tugging at your clothes, your hair, your thoughts. A stone circle sits at the center, the ground inside it smoothed flat by feet and time. An elder sits on a low bench, carving obsidian tools with a gentle rhythm. He waves you over and holds out a knife not to threaten, but to admire. It gleams darkly, catching the light in odd, impossible ways. He speaks slowly, his voice like gravel under velvet. "This blade has never cut a person, only ideas." He hands you a sliver, a shard of the night itself. "Keep it sharp. he says. You never know when you'll need to carve truth out of noise. You place the shard in your pouch, beside the cornhusk doll and the stone with the spiral. Your pockets now feel like they carry a museum or a small magical arsenal. On the far side of the plateau, you find a singer alone on a ledge, facing the horizon. Her voice drifts towards you in a language you don't understand, but somehow feel in your bones. No words, just vowels and wind, echoes and hope. You sit behind her, quiet as moss, and let the song carry you. When she finishes, she turns and smiles. That one was for travelers, she says, the kind who listen more than they talk. You thank her, and she shrugs. The sky wrote most of it anyway. As you descend the plateau, twilight begins its quiet return. The jungle shifts colors again, slipping into its evening robe indigo, moss, and smoke. You arrive at a campfire gathering, where a group of elders sits around a low flame, sipping from small clay bowls and taking turns telling stories. You're handed a bowl and sip. It's balchet, a fermented honey drink, lightly sour and a little fizzy. Not strong, just honest. One of the elders nods at you. You've walked a lot of story today. You ready to hear one? You nod. He leans forward, eyes twinkling. Once, a bat challenged the sun to a race. The bat said, "I may not be bright, but I am swift." The sun laughed and said, "We'll see." They raced from dawn to dusk. The sun blazed. The bat darted. And just when it seemed the sun had won, the bat whispered a secret that made the sun stop to think. That's why sunsets take so long. You laugh. So do they. You toss a twig into the fire, and it catches like it was always meant to. As the flames crackle, the elders begin to hum a tune that feels older than the trees. You lie back on the soft ground, the stars pricking holes in the sky above, and close your eyes. The tune follows you into your dreams. You wake at dawn again, this time near a quiet river, its waters gliding over smooth stones, its surface dotted with drifting flowers. You step in, letting the current brush over your ankles. A young woman nearby washes clay masks in the river, rinsing them gently and placing them in the sun to dry. She offers you one. It's rough, imperfect, clearly handmade. You place it over your face. Suddenly, you hear a drumbeat in your chest, not your heartbeat, something else. You remove the mask. Silence. You place it back on. Drums again. She winks. Some things are heard better with the face of another. You laugh and leave the mask on for a few more heartbeats. By midday, you reach the edge of the jungle where the air thins. The sky opens wide, and a marketplace bustles with soft clamor voices bartering, flutes playing, feathers fluttering from stalls. Vendors call to you with goods necklaces made of seeds, salt from sacred springs, jaguar-shaped candies. You smile, trade your spiral stone for a small pouch of incense, and keep moving. Even here, even among noise and color, the stillness walks with you. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of listening. You drift through the marketplace like smoke curling from a clay bowl, unhurried, curious. Welcome. The energy here isn't frantic like the bazaars of modern cities. It pulses in time with the breath of the jungle. Everything hums, everything belongs. A boy with no front teeth and the confidence of a seasoned diplomat offers you a carved jaguar whistle. You blow gently and hear a sharp, startling growl emerge, half wildcat, half wind. The boy nods, satisfied, and waves you onward. Next, a woman selling painted gourds calls you over. Each gourd is a world in miniature, painted with scenes from daily life dances around a fire, farmers in their fields, Lovers whispering on temple steps. You pick one up. It shows a lone traveler walking through a spiral of trees. She meets your eye and says, "That one's been waiting for you." You trade her the cacao doll from your pouch. Fair deal. The lane widens, revealing a textile stall draped in brilliant colors, deep cochineal reds, blues as rich as river shadows, gold spun from marigold petals. An elder woman runs her fingers along each bolt like she's reading a very soft book. She wraps a simple cloth around your shoulders, the fabric warm and scented faintly of smoke and gardenia. "For journeying," she says. "Not for arriving." You nod and wear it proudly. Down another row, a man sings to bees in woven hives, coaxing honey into shallow clay dishes. He lets you taste a drop floral, sharp, like rain on stone. He explains that each hive is dedicated to a different god, each honey unique. "Some make you remember," he adds. "Others make you forget." You ask which this is. He smiles and says nothing. Just beyond the market, a set of stone steps winds upward, worn smooth by centuries of bare feet and sacred intentions. You climb slowly, not just from the incline, but from the weight of all you now carry, not in your hands, but in your bones. Memories, smells, fragments of laughter, and ancient rhythms. At the top, a temple platform, open to the sky, ringed with carved pillars. A single flame dances in a shallow basin at the center, though there's no wood, no fuel, just fire. You sit cross-legged, facing it. A priestess approaches, her robes simple, but her presence immense. She sits beside you and places a stone bowl of ash at your feet. "This is from the oldest tree that ever burned." You ask what it was called. She says, "Name it yourself. That's what makes it sacred." You sprinkle a pinch into the flame. It hisses, turns green for a breath, then settles. The priestess begins to chant, but it's not a chant of sound, it's a chant of breath. In, out, in, out. You follow. Your shoulders drop. Your jaw unclenches. Time does something strange, it doesn't pass. It stretches. You exist inside a bubble of warmth and nothing urgent. After a while, she touches your wrist and says, "Time to look backward now." She leads you to a side chamber of the temple where rows of painted skulls rest on niches in the wall. Not morbid, more like photos on a family shelf. Each one is decorated with bright colors, feathers, bits of jade, eyes painted wide open, curious. The priestess gestures for you to sit. "This is the listening room," she says. "Not for your ears, just your remembering." You close your eyes. Silence. And then not words, but impressions. The feeling of rain on your third birthday. The smell of your grandmother's shawl. The sound of your name said by someone who meant it. You open your eyes, blinking, and realize a tear has rolled down your cheek. The priestess nods. Sometimes the ancestors remind us what we forgot we loved. You thank her with a bow, palms together. As you descend the temple steps, a group of dancers in bird costumes sweeps past. Each step a flurry of feathers and percussive joy. One peels away, grabs your hand, and spins you once, twice, then releases you with a laugh that chimes like a bell in your chest. The sun lowers. Shadows lengthen. You walk now along the edge of a vast ceremonial field, where an old man tosses a rubber ball high into the air. It thuds on stone with a sound both playful and heavy. This is the ballgame field where sport met sacrifice, where myth met muscle. You join the elder on the bench. He explains the rules. Sort of. You don't really follow, but you feel the weight of it. The players weren't just athletes, they were actors in a cosmic drama. The game represented the struggle between life and death, sun and moon, maize and drought, Historians still argue whether the winners or the losers were sacrificed, he murmurs. But I say, it depends on what they were playing for. You watch as a few children kick the ball, laughing, unaware or perhaps deeply aware of their role in the ongoing story. One kicks it toward you. You stop it with your foot, pass it back gently. They cheer. You move on. Past the field, you find a grove of sleeping hammocks strung between trees. Their sway suggests they're not empty, just temporarily unoccupied. You choose one, ease yourself in. It creaks softly but holds. Above, the sky blinks in early stars. The wind hums lullabies in a language even dreams have forgotten. Your body softens. Your breath deepens. And somewhere nearby, a jaguar yawns. Not hunting, just letting you know it's there. You wake to the kind of morning that doesn't rush. No birds shrieking for territory. No thunderclap sunrises. Just a hush. Like the jungle itself has decided to sleep in and stretch slowly across the canopy. You lie still in your hammock, swaying gently, watching pale green light filter through palm leaves above you. Every movement feels optional, even blinking. Eventually, you swing your legs over the side and drop softly to the ground. Your bare feet meet warm, packed earth, and the scent of dew-kissed moss greets you like an old friend. A soft breeze rustles the trees, not quite a song, not quite a secret, but something in between. A young boy crouches nearby, scribbling symbols in the dirt with a turkey feather. He glances up, squints at you, and says, "You dream loud." You raise an eyebrow, louder than jaguars. He clarifies with a solemn nod. Then, back to scribbling. You wander toward the river again, the one that glides like liquid jade through the forest. There, you find a woman kneeling in the shallows, her hands shaping clay vessels from riverbank mud. She smiles without speaking and pats the spot beside her. You join, of course. How could you not? The clay is cool and yielding, like it's been waiting all night for your touch. She shows you how to smooth the walls with a wet palm, how to shape the lip just so, how to etch a single spiral inside the base. Why the spiral, you ask? She gestures to your heart, then the sky, then the river. You understand, sort of. Your pot is ugly, a charming kind of ugly. She takes it anyway, nestles it beside a row of far prettier siblings, and says, "Even ugly things can carry sacred water." You laugh, then you thank her. Further along the bank, you notice a group of young adults crouched over tiny boats made of bark and leaves. They're placing them in the river with great care, each boat carrying a single seed, a feather, or a scrap of cloth. A girl explains they're wish boats, meant to carry small hopes downstream to whatever gods or fish might be listening. You're handed a boat. You place a speckled seed in the center. You don't know what kind of seed it is, but it looks like it might grow something important. You whisper a wish you don't speak aloud, then release the boat. It twirls once, like it's saying goodbye, then disappears around a bend. Someone starts to drum a low, casual beat, and the group breaks into a gentle round dance along the riverbank. You join, half out of curiosity, half because your feet say it's time to move. The rhythm is easy. The laughter is real. Later, you rest beneath a shrine tree, its branches hung with small offerings braided grass, bones shaped like fish, colorful strings of dried flowers. You tie your market gourd to one limb. It fits in perfectly, like it always belonged there. A priestess approaches, carrying a shallow bowl filled with what looks like colored sand. She pours a stream onto the ground, creating patterned circles, jagged paths, waves curling toward an unseen shore. These are maps. She tells you, but not for where you walk. They're for where your thoughts wander. You stare at the patterns. Somehow, they feel familiar. A child nearby imitates her, drawing their own version with a stick. You kneel beside them and copy it. The child giggles and corrects your lines. Apparently, your thoughts wander like a crooked snake. You thank your tiny teacher and move on. Past the shrine tree, the trail opens into a wide glade where mats have been arranged in a spiral formation. A low hum rises from the center, a flute. Played so gently it sounds more like wind learning to whistle. You sit near the outer edge. People are gathered in silence, eyes closed, hands resting palm up in their laps. You do the same. The flute speaks to you not in words, but in images. You see your grandmother's kitchen. You feel the weight of your favorite childhood blanket. You remember a scent that once made you cry and don't quite know why. Historians still argue whether Mayan music had set scales or was purely intuitive. You suspect it was both mathematical in design, emotional in practice. The music fades. The spiral disperses like sand on water. No one says a word. You rise and walk again, this time through a grove of fruiting trees, heavy with zapote, guava, and calabash. A monkey drops a half-eaten fruit at your feet, pauses, then flings a second like an offering, or a challenge. You nod graciously. The monkey bows. Later, you find a medicine woman crouched beside a small stone table, arranging herbs into bundles. She beckons you to sit, then points at your feet. With slow, practiced motions, she rubs a paste of crushed leaves and clay onto your soles. Yao. For walking softly, she explains. Not every road is made of stone. You feel the coolness seep into your skin. You thank her with a bow and leave quietly. As you near the next clearing, the air changes. It smells like rain, smoke, and obsidian. You step into an open circle where a fire pit smolders gently, surrounded by painted masks laid out in a ring. Each mask bears an exaggerated emotion: grief, joy, confusion, awe. Some are jaguar-shaped, others more human. You're asked to choose one. You reach out and, without quite knowing why, pick one that looks somewhere between awe and mischief. The guide places it on your face and leads you into a slow-motion dance, others joining in as they don their own expressions. The masks don't hide. They clarify. You move differently with it on less like yourself, more like someone who always knew how to move like this. Eventually, the dance winds down. You remove your mask. Your cheeks are wet. Someone hands you a towel woven with spirals. Of course. You dry your face and follow the trail back to the river, where twilight rests like a blanket. Fireflies blink in irregular rhythm, like stars that got distracted. The scene you're describing is so vivid, almost like stepping into a world suspended between dreams and reality. I can imagine the feeling of that path, like you're walking through a memory that hasn't fully solidified yet. Everything just slightly out of reach. The boy with the jewel-handed drawing seems like an important figure, maybe a guide or a symbol of duality, balance, or preparation for something you're about to encounter. His words, "You're almost ready," carry a weight that feels more like an invitation than a warning. I love the description of the forest, the fireflies pulsing, the canopy casting twilight shadows, and that arch of vines woven with feathers, bones, and glowing fungus. It has a magical, almost otherworldly quality. And then you step into the village clearing, with faces painted and illuminated by that ethereal green light. It feels like you've crossed some threshold, where the rules of time and place blur. It's quiet but charged, like something important is about to unfold. What do you think happens next? Does it feel like you're walking into something new or something you've already known? Tonight is a ritual evening, and you've arrived at just the right moment. An elder stands at the center, painted from forehead to feet in black and red spirals, like a storm that learnt to walk upright. He carries a staff topped with a skull not human, not quite animal either. Something mythic, something that possibly never was, except in stories. The crowd kneels. So do you. The elder begins a chant, not loud, not commanding. It's a murmur, something meant more for the gods eavesdropping than your understanding. The fire bowls flare as if nodding in agreement. From the forest's edge, dancers emerge, draped in robes made from layered bark cloth and quetzal feathers, the green shimmering like a hummingbird's sigh. Their feet never quite touch the earth, or maybe the earth lifts up to meet them. Each step in their dance echoes a celestial movement. You realize this isn't just a performance, it's a cosmic reenactment. A star's death, a moon's betrayal, the moment the jaguar devoured the sun and then spit it back out with an apology. And still, the crowd remains silent, save for the occasional gasp or chuckle, depending on what the sky demands. A child near you leans in and whispers, "They're dancing last week." You blink. "Tomorrow's dance will be about today," she adds. Like that explains everything. You nod slowly. In a way, it does. After the dancers retreat, a hush falls so thick it feels edible. Then, a woman steps forward, her voice clear and precise as she tells a legend of Xibalba, the Mayan underworld. In this version, the dead don't go below, they go sideways, into a realm that looks almost like ours, just dimmer and full of more questions. Oh, there are trickster gods there who challenge your memories, not your deeds, your memories. If you misremember something important, she says, they make you relive it until you get it wrong enough to let go. The crowd chuckles, then quiets again. She finishes the tale with a twist so soft, it slides past before your brain catches up. You don't need to applaud. Your silence is the ovation. Later, as the fire bowls dim to soft embers, you're led by torchlight to a circle of hammocks strung between trees, already filled with slumbering shapes. You find yours recognizable by the little pouch of seeds left on its edge, a thank you from someone you never met. But instead of resting, you continue wandering, drawn by a low hum. You follow the sound to a stone observatory perched on a hilltop. It's nothing like a modern dome or telescope. This one has narrow corridors aligned perfectly with solstices, equinoxes, and lunar risings. You walk through one and emerge into a chamber open to the stars. A man sits there with a bowl of reflecting water in his lap. He points upward. See that he says, "That's not a star. That's a mirror you forgot to look into." You don't know what he means, but you look anyway. And in that moment, you see not a constellation, but a pathway, drawn in pinpricks of light across the sky. Not fate, not destiny, just options. You whisper your thanks. He hands you a small obsidian shard and says, "In case you ever want to cut a new path." You tuck it beside the old one from the temple. Back in the jungle, you feel the night stretching thin as though the edges of this dream are beginning to fray. The air thickens with copal smoke, drifting from a small altar by the river where another group has gathered. They are whispering names not their own, names of grandparents, names of places, names of feelings. You whisper one too. It doesn't echo, but it doesn't vanish either. It lingers. You walk toward the river one last time. The same wishboats float silently past, carrying tiny bundles of herbs, jade beads, and folded notes written on bark paper. You wonder where they'll end up. You suspect they know better than to ask. As you sit on the bank, a girl approaches with a drum shaped like a turtle shell. She places it in your lap and says, "Just tap what your heart says." You do. It sounds like footsteps leaving home. She nods, satisfied. From here, you retrace your steps not backwards, but inward. Each place you passed earlier now glows faintly, as if leaving a breadcrumb trail through memory. You revisit the ball court, the hammock grove, the feathered dancers clearing, and finally, the temple steps, now bathed in moonlight so bright it makes the carvings shimmer like water. At the top, The priestess waits. You kneel beside her again. She places both hands on your shoulders, then leans in close and whispers, "You've walked well." Then she hands you a small pouch. Inside a single spiral-shaped seed, smooth as polished bone, warm as fresh bread. You don't know what to do with it. She says, "Just carry it. It will know when to grow." You place it in your pocket, beside the seed from the wish boat and the cloth spiral you once danced on. The priestess smiles. "Time to return," she says. But you realize she doesn't mean to the marketplace, or the river, or even your hammock. She means something else, something quieter. You nod and descend the steps for the last time. The jungle exhales, and you, for once, exhale with it. By now, the moon hangs directly overhead, silver and deliberate, like it's been waiting for you to notice its steady gaze all along. The leaves above your head glisten faintly, as if dipped in pearl dust. Everything in the forest seems to pause, not asleep, not alert, but in a kind of patient listening posture. Even the frogs have silenced their chorus for a moment. The hush isn't eerie, it's expectant. You return to the courtyard of the claymaker, where earlier you'd pressed spirals into riverbank mud. In the center now stands a single finished vessel, your own, unmistakable in its wobbly base and off-center lip. But something's changed. It's glowing, not a light you can measure, more of a presence, like someone once whispered a blessing into it and it never quite stopped echoing. A man sits nearby, tending a small fire beside a pile of stones arranged in a circle. He motions you closer, then begins to speak, not in story, but in memory. His own. He tells you of a time when he lost someone he loved, and how he filled a similar pot with ashes and prayers and set it afloat. It didn't bring her back, but it carried something away. The weight, the tightness in his chest, the sense that he should have said more. You listen, not because he needs you to, but because your silence is a kind of thank you. When he finishes, he offers you a smooth stone from the circle. "This one listens," he says. "Keep it near your tongue." You do. It hums slightly when you grip it, as if remembering every word it ever heard. Further along the path, you hear the clink of obsidian tools, a craftsman etching symbols into bone. You approach, fascinated, as he carves with delicate precision, his hands steady, his brow furrowed in concentration. He's not making jewelry, not weapons either. He's making message bones, small talismans engraved with thoughts too tender for speech. You ask if you can make one. He nods once, hands you a blank shard. You etch slowly, clumsily, something you're not ready to say aloud. It isn't pretty, but it's real. When you hand it back, he doesn't judge your work, just holds it to his heart for a moment, then tucks it into a woven pouch. "You'll need that later," he says, handing it back. On you go. This time, the jungle thins. You enter a clearing dotted with ancient stone stelae, tall and weathered, covered in glyphs older than most myths. Some stand proud, others lean, a few have fallen, but none are silent. A guide appears, not a priest, not a historian, just someone who knows how to read the cracks. "These stones tell of kings and maize gods and jaguar births," he explains, "but also where to dig a well, how to honor your mother. When the moon gets lonely," he laughs softly. You run your fingers over the glyphs. One symbol catches your attention, a curved line wrapped around a circle. It feels like breath caught in stone. He says it means waiting for rain that's already coming. You smile at that. Past the stele lies a small cenote, its water dark and glassy, the surface broken only by the occasional drop from an unseen leaf above. This is a sacred well, used not just for drinking, but for reflection, both literal and internal. You kneel and peer into the water. It doesn't show your face. It shows your memories, layered like sediment, faint images of everything you've seen on this journey. The spiral dance, the cacao drink, the whispering bones, all still there, rippling faintly under the surface. You lower your hand, and the water cools your skin. When you lift it again, your palm bears a faint spiral mark, not painted, etched from within. A woman approaches carrying a reed flute and sits beside you. She begins to play not a melody, but a kind of echo. You recognize fragments of tunes you heard earlier. Dancers' steps, river songs, children's laughter, even the silent hush of the temple. This is how the land remembers, she says between notes. It plays itself back, just softly enough for dreamers to hear. You lean against a tree, the bark warm from holding sunlight all day. And for a moment, you listen not with your ears, but with every bone and breath you've been carrying. The stars have shifted again. Another jaguar yawn ripples through the leaves. You smile. At last, you return to the edge of the village, where the torchlight fades and the forest folds back into itself. A small group waits for you, each one someone you've met before. The boy with the whistle, the priestess with the ash, the old man at the observatory, even the monkey, sitting upright with far more dignity than earlier. They nod. You nod. There's no farewell. Not really. Just a glance shared between travelers who've walked the same spiral. The path winds forward now, but not through jungle. It curves inward, into thought, into memory, into something just a little more eternal than time. You step forward. The gourd hangs from your belt, the stones still near your tongue, the seed quietly warming in your pocket. And overhead, one final firefly blinks once, then again, then out. The path beneath your feet softens, becomes less about destination and more about the quiet decision to keep walking. You don't know if it leads back to the temple, the market, or the hammock strung like a cradle in some long-forgotten courtyard. A beautiful moment. The way you've captured it, so serene and rich with meaning, reminds me of those rare times when you feel utterly in tune with the world around you, like you've been drawn into something greater than yourself. I love the imagery of the glow fruit, soft and gentle, and the handprints on the stones, almost like a testament to people who were there, even if only for a moment. What do you think this ritual or gesture represents? That lingering imprint, the thread around the wrist. Is it something about connection or letting go? Or maybe it's something more subtle. You don't ask what it means. You already feel it settling into your bones like a promise. You walk again. A winding trail takes you past a honey grove, where bees drift lazily from flower to hive, humming as if reading poems out loud to each other. One lands on your shoulder, pauses, then takes off again. Approval granted. Nearby, a girl sits cross-legged with a woven mat unrolled before her. On it, she's arranging small jade pieces into constellations, not of stars of emotions. Each one a feeling carved into shape, longing, laughter, fear disguised as confidence. She gestures for you to join. You place a stone that feels like patience. She nods. Together, you build a sky. Later, under a flowering saber tree, you meet a woman painting symbols on bark paper. The ink is made from crushed berries and midnight water. She paints not with precision, but with instinct. When she's done, she folds the paper and slips it into your pouch without a word. That night, you sit by the river one last time. The water moves slow and wide, reflecting not just the stars, but every fire you've ever sat beside, every voice that ever whispered your name into the wind. From upstream, a single wishboat floats into view. You recognize it. It's yours, the one you sent off days or lifetimes ago. It's heavier now, It carries a seed, a feather, a folded scrap of painted bark, a jade stone shaped like your own quiet hope. It drifts into your hand like it always meant to come home. You lift it gently and let it float away again, this time not with a wish, but with a thank you. And now the night deepens. The fireflies return, weaving a web of blinking threads between the trees. You lie back in a hammock you didn't notice until now, woven from vines and dreams and long-forgotten lullabies. Overhead, the stars have settled into a story you finally understand. You remember the cacao's warmth, the soft hush of the shrine tree, the pulse of the earth under your bare feet. You are no longer a visitor. You are part of the map, and the map, in its own quiet language, says rest, breathe, let go. The rhythm of the jungle slows now, not into silence, but into something even softer. The leaves above you seem to rock gently, as if the whole world is exhaling in time with your breath. That sweet, humid warmth still lingers in the air, like someone's left a fire just far enough away to keep the edge of chill from settling in. Your hammock cradles you not too snug, not too loose, just the way something ancient and hand-woven should. It sways gently, not from wind, but from the memory of footsteps, of stories told in soft voices, of seeds planted in soil and in hearts alike. You hear the rustle of a basket being packed somewhere far off, the flutter of a bird settling into feathers, the last bubble of a stream making its long journey to the sea. Every sound is stretched, softened, wrapped in velvet shadow. The clay vessel you shaped earlier is still nearby, cool now, nestled in the grass like a sleeping thought. A flicker of scent cacao, maize. Something floral and smoky lifts on the breeze and curls into your nose, your mind, your ribs. In this moment, you are both weightless and grounded, ancient and brand new. Tomorrow might come with drums and dancing and sun on your face. But tonight, there is only this stillness, softness, the breath between dreams, and the knowledge that somewhere, a tiny seed is just beginning to hum.